Well, hello and welcome to the Dare to Differentiate Live. The purpose of the show is to empower you to own your voice, value, and visibility so that you shine and thrive. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I am so delighted that you're here. Type in the comment to say hello and let me know where you are from. Also, because in honor of Asian Heritage Month, I've been learning from speakers the last couple of weeks on the show. If you want to learn about someone's background, we can ask them like, what's your ethnicity or what's your ethnic background instead of just asking about where are you from. So if you guys feel free to want to type in like, what's your ethnicity? So to start off, I'm Chinese Canadian. I'm originally from Hong Kong, born and raised there. Immigrated to Canada when I was 5 years old, and then moved back to Hong Kong again when I was 10, and then moved back to Canada again all by myself when I was 16, where I also had to overcome my shyness, language barrier, and culture shock as well. So that's a little bit about me there. So I'm your host, Diana YK Chian, founder of My Markability, where I help you stand out, get hired, and earn more. As a seasoned career coach and a personal branding marketer, I work with ambitious leaders, professionals, and executives who are in career transition and need help with amplifying their markability, visibility, and credibility to attract great opportunities and reach the next level. So speaking of next level, I recently had a client who reached the next level. He pivoted from consulting to technology in a finance executive, brand new role there. And he more than doubled his income, over 6 figures more. It's crazy. I was reflecting on it today. I was like, I can't believe it. It's life-changing that he's doubling his income there and reaching that next level, that's his dream job there. So let me see who's in the house here. We have Elizabeth from Boston. We have Simone, welcome back again. Chinese, Jamaican, raised in Canada, Canadian, awesome. Mekdem from Vancouver, amazing. Oh, we have Flora from South Africa as well. Amazing. See, I love learning. I love learning about like where you guys from, but I was like, also, what's your ethnic background to celebrate our own heritage as well. So, I decided to, with this month dedicated to Amplify Asian Voices series because of in honor of Asian Heritage Month. And what I decided to do is really have fireside chats with Asian speakers to learn about their cultural upbringing, their career journey, and a topic of interest. So this is already the 3rd week. I have 5 amazing speakers today where we're going to learn about diversity, mentoring, leadership, authenticity, and many, many more. So we want to make it as interactive as possible, like chime in the comments with us there as well. So to learn more about the speakers and topics as well, or even past ones, if this is new here, check out my website at mymarkability.com/events. That's where you can get an update of all the speakers. And then some logistics before we welcome our speakers here today is that replay will be available on my YouTube channel. I will be adding timestamps later on along with the interview questions so that you can watch it for like easy viewing there. And then the other thing is I really want to encourage you guys to click like and comment anytime, give us some love, share your thoughts, your ideas, key learnings, and questions that you may have, okay? And if you've been here, I'm all about raising the vibrational energy here. For some speakers, this is like their first time being on live with us. So I want you to also show your appreciation and support as well. So type in, for example, like go Jean, hashtag, or hashtag go Angie, go Ivan, go Daniel, go Tej, who are all my amazing speakers today, okay? So when I introduce them, type that in because they're backstage and they'll be able to see that there, okay? Amazing, amazing. Let me see here. I just want to see who's in the house here. Awesome. Okay, this is good. Okay, so let me welcome you, our first speaker of the day, Dr. Jean Kim. I met Jean back in 2013 at an event. I actually found her business card just a couple of days ago when I was cleaning up here that we met in 2013 at an event there. And Dr. Jean Kim is a co-founder of the LYP Women's Leadership and Career Development Program, a program dedicated to empowering women to live their fullest potential. As a global communication strategist and an award-winning educator, Jean has taught professional communication skills and public speaking, among others, at universities in Canada, the US, and Korea in the last 21 years. She has also conducted leadership training at organizations such as KPMG, Ryerson University, and the World Bank. Throughout her career, Jean has mentored numerous young professionals from around the world. In most recent years, she has enjoyed volunteering as a mentor through the Korean Professional Women's Association and is also fiercely devoted to mentoring the graduates of her LYP program. Are you guys excited? Type in go Jean, hashtag go Jean. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. And also see backstage Angie as well. She's already here early. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so let me bring Jean on board here.
Hello, Diana.
Hello, Jean. How are you?
Hi, I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. What an amazing platform you've organized. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'm so honored and delighted to have you. I'm so glad you said yes. Like, I know we've been staying in touch over the years, and I've always admired what you do, like being in
thank you so
communication. So I'm so glad to have this opportunity with you today. So let's get started. We're gonna start off with some rapid fire questions, and then we'll move into your career journey. Yeah. Great. So the first question is, what fulfills you?
I love this question, by the way. What fulfills me is when I know that I have made a difference in the lives of those that matter to me, but in that process, I haven't lost my own self. And I really want to emphasize not losing myself in that process, because I think many of the audience members can relate to being supportive to others and really doing our best to support them. But what is left of us if we don't take care of ourselves, our own well-being, physically and mentally? And so for me, it's so fulfilling when I know that I have that true balance between supporting others, but also supporting myself mentally and emotionally.
Oh, I love that. Don't lose yourself there. What's one thing most people don't know about you?
Well, unless you've already checked out my LinkedIn profile, one thing people don't know about me is that from a very young age, I've lived from country to country, moved around from country to country, first because of my father's occupation as a corporate professional, and later on for my own work and career. So you can probably guess from my last name, Kim, that my ethnic background is Korean. But I also lived in Hong Kong, I lived in Seoul, London, New York, Tokyo, Paris, Vancouver, Honolulu, Hawaii, and now Toronto. So I think that's a pretty fun fact about me.
What's your favorite city or place that you live?
That's a really hard one to answer because I love them, because it's really the people that I met there. My friends back from my New York days, I still keep in touch with them. They are the loves of my life in so many ways. Hawaii absolutely was so beautiful. Vancouver, Toronto, I can't really choose. They were all special in so many ways, in their own unique ways.
I can't wait to go to Hawaii. I've been to Maui and the Big Island for my honeymoon.
Both very beautiful.
Yeah. So what's your favorite book?
You're probably wondering why I'm laughing, because when I read this question, Diana, I had to really chuckle because my son was born over 3 years ago, and I haven't really finished reading a book in those 3+ years. So I was thinking, do children's book count? But
Absolutely.
But there is one book that I do go back to every now and then. A friend gifted it to me over 2 decades ago, and it's a Korean book, and its title is 사랑하는 사람에게 주고 싶은 책. And if Angie is listening from the backstage, she knows what this means. But if I loosely translate it to English, it's a book you want to give to someone you love. It's a collection of essays, poems, and quotes, really about the fact that if you seek to look for it, love is everywhere. And it's not just talking about romantic love. It's about the laughter of a child, the wrinkles on your grandmother's face, the fresh air you breathe in the morning. These are all things that are love. And so it's something that I go back to every now and then, and it always puts me in a great mood.
I love that. It's the perspective,
Exactly.
Seeing it from the love perspective and kindness. And I love that's such a great reminder as well, like being in the moment there. So let's dive into your career journey. Actually, I want to go, how did you begin your career?
Well, at the tender age of 14, as Diana introduced, I am an educator and co-founder of LYP program. By the way, LYP stands for Live Your Potential. So when it comes to my career as an educator, it started at the age of 14, the tender age. I was attending an international school in Tokyo at that time, and I taught English after school to Japanese students in the neighborhood. And so it was then and there that I knew that I had a love for teaching, that I wanted to pursue an education as my career path. But when it comes to my leadership training career, when I was a professor, particularly when I was teaching back in Korea, I had the opportunity to teach a lot of female students who so graciously and generously referred to me as their role model. They would come up to me and say, Jean, Dr. Kim, you're my role model. I want to be like you when I grow up, which of course made me feel very old at that time. um, and and of course, I was very flattered and humbled by their comments, but I also wanted to do more and be more than just humbled and flattered within the limited time that I had with them during my office hours. I really wanted to do more to empower young women in our communities. So when I moved to Toronto several years ago, I joined forces with my now amazing business partner, Singh, and so we created the LYP program, and the rest, as I say, is history.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit more about that. Like what's interesting about what you currently do?
Well, whether it's in my role as an educator or LYP co-founder, I love the fact that I get to interact with people like-minded and who actually are there because they want to grow and develop themselves. And I think, Diana, you can probably relate to this. When you know that people are there because they genuinely want to be there, as an educator, as a workshop facilitator, as a coach, it makes a world of difference, right? You see the twinkle in their eyes, their eagerness, and the development in them, the confidence increase. It's so amazing. So the fact that I get to interact with such amazing, like-minded women is so amazing. It's beyond my dreams, because I don't feel like what I do is a job, because I absolutely love what I do. And at the same time, because of the fact that we run a lot of events through the LYP program, I get to meet a lot of speakers and mentors from diverse industries and backgrounds. And so I don't have to stay in that industry bubble of mine. So they help me widen my perspectives, broaden my views. And so I feel very privileged to be in that position.
I love it. I can definitely feel your passion and that you care about this. I love that. What are your guiding principles in managing and advancing a career?
Well, I think my grandmother and my mom have been such a huge influence on my life. And so what they've taught me is be excellent at what you do. That is a given. That must be a given. And I actually do have very high standards for myself. I am my own worst critic, as I'm sure many of you are as well, for yourself. But make sure that you don't forget the importance of kindness, compassion, and empathy, not just for those around you, but to yourself as well. And I think people remember how you treat them. Character matters. How you treat people really matters, and that can take you so much further in life, more so than any technical skill you have acquired. So remembering the kindness, empathy, and compassion is key for me.
Ooh, I love that. Love that. Oh my goodness, this is so good. Okay, I'm going to move into your the cultural upbringing question here. How has being Asian impacted your values, standards, norms, expectations, or traditions?
Well, as I mentioned, I lived abroad for so many years, abroad as in outside of Korea, since I was a child. And no matter where we went, my parents would always emphasize to my sisters and myself that you're representing Korea, no matter where we go. So you have to leave a positive impression of Koreans and the Korean culture to those you meet. And you have to remember, Diana, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, where not a lot of people knew where Korea even was. They would be like, is that China? Is that part of Japan? And so if my parents would say, if you don't leave a positive impression of Korea, they will forget about what it is, because they already don't know much about it to begin with. And so making sure you do your best to represent your culture in a positive way. And I still carry that value with me very strongly up until today. I'm very, very proud of my Korean heritage. And so no matter what I do, I want to do my best to represent it in the most positive light, whether it's in my professional or my personal life.
Oh, I love that. I actually visited South Korea back in 2006. That was my first time being there, and my husband came with me at the time, and we had an amazing experience. I think we were there for like a week or 10 days there, and I loved it.
Did you try the food?
Oh yeah, I love Korean food. Yeah.
Can you handle spicy?
I can handle spicy. I love spicy.
Okay, you and I can be best friends now.
I love some really good kimchi.
Oh, me too, me too. I can't live without it. I am hardcore Korean that way.
Yeah. Spicy food's my thing. Seafood and sushi. Amazing. So what challenges did you face in your life or career due to your race? How did it impact you? Did you ever struggle with, owning your heritage because of those challenges?
Well, certainly as a child, I think many of us who grew up as a minority in any community, you do encounter some nasty comments, right? Like, go back to your country, or hello sushi, ni hao, hello, I'm Korean. What do you mean, hello sushi, ni hao? So those comments were certainly part of my life, not all the time, but sometimes. But interestingly enough, in my professional life, there is one incident that stands out to me as a form of racial discrimination that I experienced. And it was a very new form of racial discrimination, and I'll tell you why. When I started teaching at the university where I was doing my master's degree, I was teaching at a language institute, an English communication class. And the first day of class of that course, of that English communication course, I was told later on that a Korean male student, had dropped my class because, in his words, he didn't come all the way to the United States to learn English communication from a Korean. Wow. And looking back now, I suspect there were more layers to that than just my race, but it was also my gender and the fact that I was quite young. I think I was 22 at that time. And I think at that time, I wasn't necessarily hurt by that experience, but I was very confused because all my life I grew up speaking English as my dominant language. I am fully bilingual. I do speak Korean, but English was my dominant language. I got the best grades in English at school. I've been teaching English since I was 14. I have a degree in English education, and yet all that became irrelevant in the eyes of this person and the eyes of this student, because it was just my race that mattered to him when it comes to who was qualified to teach him English communication skills. So that was certainly a new form of racism that I experienced. I was definitely confused. I was thinking, really? But I had really amazing mentors who I will talk about later on, amazing mentors who supported me, who reassured me, who told me that I was great at what I do. And thankfully, I believed them and I believed in myself. And the beauty of this story is that I actually received the best course evaluation that semester in that institute. So it wasn't such a sad ending after all.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You just reminded me, I did face something similar as well when I wanted to go to China to teach English, and the preference is they wanted a person who's a whiter Caucasian to teach English there. And I also faced here, wanted to teach business class as well of my race. I had faced that too. So I can totally relate to that there. So let's dive into your topic, Jean, shall we? On mentoring matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why are mentors important? What role have mentors played in your career journey?
Mentors. I think mentoring matters. Mentors matter because no matter where we are at in our careers, we can all use a cheerleader. We can all use a sounding board, a shoulder to cry on at times, somebody there to guide you and support you and give you tough love when needed as well. And in terms of my own career journey, mentors have been just incredible. I cannot imagine being where I am today without the support of my mentors. I still vividly, really clearly remember the powerful words of some of my most incredible mentors, who I want to give a shout out to today. Dr. Paul Green from my university years, who told me, Jean, I expect great things from you. Kenny from the University of Hawaii, who I still keep in touch with. Just up until this morning, I mentioned to him that I was speaking today. And he told me, Jean, you are great at what you do. And if somebody tells you otherwise, I've got your back. Karen Brunger from the International Image Institute, who on the very last day of our course, she gave me a hug and said, welcome, you're one of mine. Such powerful words for me. And she really walked the talk. She has embraced me, has been such a guiding mentor during my entrepreneurial journey, introducing me to new connections, opening doors to me. And I am so forever grateful for that. Oprah Winfrey, I think, said it so beautifully. She said, a mentor is somebody who allows you to see the hope inside yourself. And for me, my mentors have been exactly that and so much more.
Oh, I love this, guys. The audience, I want to hear from you guys. Have you had a mentor in your life? Like, what impact have they had? I love this discussion. Like, as you're talking about this, like one of my earlier mentor, Daniel Yeung, who's going to be one of our speakers here, like he was my mentor when I started my career and really gave me the confidence to pursue what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing. So thank you for sharing that. So what are some reasons or misconceptions about mentorship that prevent individuals from seeking a mentor?
In my experience working with numerous mentees over the years, I think there are a few reasons why they hesitate to seek a mentor. One of them is that they simply don't know where and how to find them. Number two, they feel intimidated about approaching somebody to be their mentor because they think, well, that person is so established, such a senior professional in their field. Why would they want to mentor someone like me, like little old me? And lastly, they worry about what can I do for my mentor? What can I give in return for their time and energy that they put for me? I have nothing good to offer them. And I'll talk a little bit about, number one, where to find a mentor, how to find a mentor in just a little bit. But number two, in terms of the intimidation factor, I can certainly relate to this because I felt this way when I was certainly starting out in my career. I felt intimidated. I wasn't sure if anybody would want to mentor me. But now that I've been in a position of mentoring myself for many, many years, I can assure you that when somebody agrees to be your mentor, they are not there to judge you. They really want to support you because they want you to succeed. They are really cheering you on for your success. And yes, they may give you tough love along the way, but that's because they want to challenge you and push you because they see that potential in you. So don't allow that intimidation factor to stop you from seeking a mentor. And in terms of not knowing what can I do in return for their mentorship, I think your success, your growth, your development, that's what you can give in return, first and foremost. If they are putting in the energy and time to see you succeed, commit to really working on your goals so that they see the development in you.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you want to do a little bit something more tangible to help your mentor, be creative about what you can help them out with. For instance, if somebody is a mentee of Diane, when she's organizing an event, help her out, volunteer to promote the event. If we can host events in person, be a volunteer there in person or even virtually, really. And one other tip that I have is write a raving recommendation for them, for your mentor on LinkedIn. Talk about what an amazing mentor they've been, how their guidance and support has helped you. Because I think mentorship is a wonderful reflection of somebody's leadership skills as well. So I think that's a tangible tip I can offer. And last but not least, pay it forward. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
How incredible would it be for you to honor your mentor by becoming a mentor yourself one day to somebody who needs your guidance and support?
Oh, I love this. This is something we don't talk enough about. I feel like the mentoring, the relationship, and the misconceptions. I was a peer mentor to over 100 first-year students in university, like to new immigrants, to international students, and I loved it. It was a lot of work, but I just love seeing people blossom to reach their potential, and these relationships that you build down the road, you just never know. So I just love what you talked about here. So why don't we go into how to go about finding a mentor?
Can I just say right before that, Diana, that the fact that you were a peer mentor and you wanted to help people and you love that experience, I think it's reflected in what you do today. So you're so consistent with your brand, even when you were in university. I don't know if you planned on doing what you are doing now as an adult, but the fact that you started as a peer mentor back then, helping people, international students, I think that says so much about who you are. So
thank you. And you know what? I have to say that it's also got to do with my own upbringing and Asian culture values as well. Like pay it forward. Like I really resonate with that. I always talk about pay it forward. I have my pay it forward Fridays as well. And my parents always remind me, right, of just how I always remind myself how lucky I am that I got to move here for like a better education and future. So for me, giving back is really important and a core part of my own business as well. And this is why I do shows like this to support others. So
that's amazing.
By the way, I want to say that I love that Angie shared the book that you mentioned. We typed it in the chat room as well. It's in Korean. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Simrat, into the chat room. Thank you. Amazing. We got some amazing discussions here. So yeah, how do we go about finding a mentor?
Yeah. Well, I think a very straightforward and less complicated way of finding a mentor is to look for organizations that actually offer a mentorship program. for instance, universities have alumni associations. I think most universities have this now, alumni associations where they match students, recent graduates, whether you're undergrad or graduate, with alumni that want to be there as mentors for these students and recent graduates. I want to mention that as well. So you don't have to be a current student to take part in these programs. Another suggestion I have is to look for professional associations that also offer mentorship programs. And like you mentioned in my bio, I have been a volunteer mentor with the Korean Professional Women's Association, KPWA, for the last 6 years now. And full disclosure here, I also volunteer as a committee advisor to KPWA. But I really, and nobody's paying me to say this, I really, really love their mentorship program. I think it's absolutely outstanding. And so you don't have to be a Korean or a woman to take part as a mentee or a mentor, in fact. So I encourage you to check out their program.
I love that.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And Diana, you mentioned peer mentorship programs. I think oftentimes when we think of a mentorship opportunity, we only think of somebody that's perhaps more experienced or older than you, but there's lots to be gained from peer mentorship experiences as well. And from the peer mentorship programs that I've encountered, there's a lot of accountability that's involved. So with your group of peers, you support each other, you push each other, but there's also accountability. So you better do what you say you will do. And I think that's the beauty of a peer accountability group, a peer mentorship group. If you don't necessarily want to be involved in a more structured mentorship program, I think, of course, more organic relationships can be built without the official title of mentor and mentee. And I encourage you, in order to do this, to really look around your network, whether it's at work or elsewhere. Look around and see, who is it that I admire? Who do I respect? Who is my role model? Reach out to them. From a genuine place of curiosity, reach out to them and let them know how much you admire them, what it is about them that you admire, instead of just the vague statement of I admire you, but being a little bit more specific and why specifically that you are reaching out to them. Ask them for coffee. Knock on wood, hopefully we'll be able to have in-person coffee soon enough, or virtually reach out to them and learn their story. And make sure to learn their stories really from a place of curiosity and listening more than talking about yourself, really. And once they've shared their story with you, get back to them, follow up with them about what you've learned, how you've applied the learnings to your professional and even personal life, and request for another coffee chat, maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, but really putting the effort to continuously reach out to them and building that relationship organically.
Amazing. I love that you answered that question, how to build that successful mentor relationship. So my final question, go ahead.
Do we have the time? Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that I also really want to suggest is, if mentorship is important for you, then this is something you need to be asking at your job interview. And Diana, you are an interview coach. I know you know this better than I do. I had a mentee who was quite lonely and frustrated in the position she was in at that time, because she herself was the entire design team. There was nobody more senior to her, so she didn't feel like there was a lot of opportunity for growth or mentorship. And so when I was working with her, I encouraged her, you know what, next time you go for a job interview, you need to be asking, are there mentorship opportunities for me in this organization? Will I be part of a larger design team so that I have senior professionals that can guide me and mentor me? And it really is the responsibility of that person, if mentorship is important for you, to do the research about the company culture, whether there are opportunities for mentorship, and if mentorship is a really big part of their company mandate and culture as well, and their mission.
Amazing, amazing. So final question really quickly is, what career advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say, Jean, you're doing a great job so far. I would tell myself the importance of kindness, empathy, and compassion, and look for a mentor. Look for a mentor and pay it forward one day when you are in the position to mentor as well.
Amazing, amazing. And guys, if you guys want to follow Dr. Jean Kim, feel free to check out her website at liveyourpotential.ca, or follow her on LinkedIn, or connect with her as well. Or you can also connect with her on Instagram. Thank you so much, Jean. It was such a delight and a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Diana. You are an incredible thought leader. Thank you so much for this platform that you've created to amplify Asian voices. I have so much respect for you. And it was such a pleasure to be here as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Oh my goodness, wasn't that amazing? I love it. We kicked off the show about like love and compassion. I love it. So next up we have Angie Kim, who's already backstage with us as well. I love that she came early and she was listening in, and I love it, cheering it on as well. So Angie Kim, I actually just recently met her on LinkedIn, but I actually came across her post last year when the pandemic happened, and I just really admire her as a leader. And Angie Kim is the Vice President of Operations for the Loblaw companies. She's celebrating her 10th year with the company and is the first and only woman of color to lead the national operations. She's the recipient of the 2020 Star Women in Grocery Award, which is one of the most prestigious awards given in the CPG industry. And in the same year, she was also given the 2020 Women of Inspiration Award in recognition of her servant leadership at the front line during the pandemic. Angie volunteered in the front line during the pandemic for 4 months. So we're going to talk a little bit about that there. Angie's leadership has been featured on several publications, including Forbes and National Post just recently. And she enjoys spending her spare time mentoring the future generation leaders. Are you guys excited to welcome Angie on stage? Let's type in "Go Angie" here. Go Angie. Let's bring her on.
Am I live?
You are live. Welcome.
Oh my goodness. I'm just loving the energy in the chat room. Kudos for all of you joining in. And I actually forgot that I was here to speak, Diana, because I just really came here to listen to Jean speak. And don't ever put me after Jean, because like I can't follow that. Like, thank you everybody. That was really a recap for Jean. Thank you, Jean. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she was amazing. Well, first of all, welcome and congratulations on your recent promotion, your awards as well. So amazing. I'm so glad I saw the post like recently. It was featured on LinkedIn. So I had to reach out to you, and so grateful you said yes right away.
You bet. No, it's my pleasure. And as Jean said, thank you, Diana, for providing this forum so that we can talk about it, we can raise awareness, and we can empower each other. So kudos to you.
Amazing. All right. So let's dive in. The first rapid fire question: what fulfills you?
Oh, what fulfills me? A lot of things. There's a lot of things that fulfills me, a lot of things that gives me joy. I'm easy to impress. But there's actually a word that I recently discovered that my mom told me about. In Korean, it's called sohwakhaeng, which means small but definite happiness. And I just find that especially nowadays, you really got to look out for these sohwakhaeng, right? Because there's just a lot of hardship out there, especially through the COVID. And I think sometimes we just got to remind ourselves to look out for small but definite joys in life.
You're right. It's the little things that matter. I love that.
Right.
I'm reminding myself, even with the long weekend, that I want to be present with my kids this weekend instead of working. I want to enjoy the beautiful weather. I want to do bike rides with them instead of just being on my phone all the time. It's those little things to be intentional about. So
exactly.
Good reminder. What's one thing most people don't know about you?
I'm a pretty open book, so I don't think there's there's much that people don't know about me. But I think one of the things that I'm proud of that people may not know about me, maybe they do, I consider it my superpower is my empathy and just being really great at reading people. Obviously, humility isn't my superpower because I like to brag about being empathetic. But I think I've always been intuitive at picking up what's not said, right? Like body languages, tone of the voice, the emotions that come with the words. And sometimes it gets me in trouble with my partner, right? Because I'm like, come on, I know what's on your mind. I know you're mad. Just tell me what's wrong. But it does come in handy when it's building a professional network for sure.
I'm like that too. I'm like, okay, I know something's up. Just talk me through it.
I know you're mad at me. Just say it.
Exactly. Just talk through it, right? What's your favorite book?
Ooh, so in a fancy meetings like this, I would say The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, because that is actually one book that really spoke to me when I was a store manager all the way out in Saskatoon by myself. And it taught me that one of the biggest life lessons, it taught me that, really fear is a bigger obstacle than the obstacle itself. So I really love that book. I keep going back to read it. But for fun, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. There are tons of books that I love. My favorite, my guilty pleasure is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. And I've also enjoyed Mistborn series. So for those of you sci-fi nerds out there, you're welcome.
Any sci-fi nerds out there, love it, love it. So let's go into but your career. What's interesting about what you currently do? What's your mandate? Because I know for those who don't know, you pivoted your career from being a finance role to being a national operation. So love to hear more about it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm celebrating my 10th year with Loblaw. I've had 7 different careers, not necessarily by design, but that's why I think when Jean mentioned that, look for companies that empower mentorship, also look for companies that empower transferable skill sets and practicing your leadership. But maybe I'll speak a little bit more on what's interesting about what I currently do. You're right, because I've just taken in the promotion just last November. So about 6 months that I've been in this role. And what's interesting is that sometimes I have no clue what I'm doing or what to expect the next day. What I do, I lead national wholesale operations for Loblaw companies, and just like you, just like my team, just like everybody in the chat, we're going through a pandemic the first time. I'm a pandemic virgin. I've never done it before, and I have had to learn how to pivot, survive during these difficult times, right? And with so many changes across the country regarding, restrictions, especially in the retail environment, what to do, what not to do. And let's be honest, there is also so much social tension and stress and so much of this frustration that has been taken out on my poor frontline team, where they receive the short end of the customer's anger, and for doing what they're supposed to do, right? Help out and support the community. So sometimes I feel really stuck, really not knowing how I can support and protect my team from the pandemic, from the abuse, from the fatigue, from everything that's going on the floor. But what I can tell you is I try my best to listen and action whatever I can to make sure my team can come out healthy and happy at the end. So that's sort of what's interesting and kind of speaking to the mandate of what I do right now.
Nice. Can we talk a little bit about, I guess, what was it like working in the front lines, during COVID? Maybe take us back a little bit. What was that like? And how did that experience help you with what you're currently doing in your role?
What was it like? It was the toughest shit oh my God, excuse my French. It was the toughest thing I've ever done. So here's the thing. I kind of went in to volunteering. This is when I was a senior director in finance. I kind of went into volunteering at the front line during the first bit of the pandemic. And I went in with a little bit of arrogance. Because I've been a store manager, right? And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what to do. Like, this ain't no thing. I got this. And during this time, I volunteered, right? Like, it wasn't show up once a week for a few hours and, kiss babies and wave hello. I showed up 6 days a week. I pulled 12-hour shifts. I did everything from being the door greeter to stocking shelves, cleaning washrooms. And I did that for about 4 months while the panic buy was still prevalent. Remember when you couldn't get toilet papers and you had to beat over each other, like, my toilet paper.
You're right. I remember.
Right? My gosh. And I'm sure all of you still have enough toilet papers. You don't need to go and buy another one for the next 20 years, right? Good luck with those. But anyway, honestly, Diana, during those times, that utter physical fatigue actually isn't the reason why I said it was one of the toughest experiences I've ever had, but it was the emotional fatigue. First of all, I was scared, right? I mean, I'm also human, and not to be dramatic, but I actually woke up every morning. I took a shower. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, am I prepared to die today? And because I mean, you're in the front lines, and that's before even when the masks were mandated inside in
Mm,
indoor spaces. And
right.
the fear of contracting the virus in the front line was so very real, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, like when I asked myself the dramatic question, am I willing to die today? The answer was yes, because I was willing to risk what I had, everything I had, because I knew that day, that morning, I was going to right where I was needed. I was fulfilling my life's purpose. I was healthy, right? I didn't have any family members that I need to care for who are immunocompromised. I had tons of experiences with operation. I was the perfect candidate to help out at the front lines when it was needed. And
Mm,
I knew that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't step up to help out my frontline team. So I went into work every morning,
wow.
open at 5 a.m. Sure, I was scared, but I was also brave, right? I had more courage than I was fearful. But
Wow.
but what put a dent on my positive spirit from time to time is how mean and cruel some people can be. I mean, we all come across some people like that. I've been sped on, cursed at, abused on the sales floor only because of the color of my skin. And
Wow.
I think Jean mentioned it too, right? Like, go back to your country. Like, some yelled at me to go back to China, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm Korean, so get your Asian straight. but really, the words would sometimes cut me
Yeah.
so deep that I
Yeah.
can't shake it off for days, weeks. Like, I'm still talking about it a year after today. But of
Right.
course, there was so much kindness on the floor. Like, people would go out of their way to thank the staff. They would bring team lunch, thank you cards, and that love is what got my frontline team through the last year, and as we go through today, and that kindness and empathy that we saw through the difficult times, those were what
Oh,
really mattered. So yeah, those are the
I
qualities I continue
love
to
it.
remind myself. Yeah, yeah,
Love
it's
and
a constant thing.
kindness. And it sounds like what I'm hearing too, that you really bonded with your team as well. Like being in the front line, you got to know them. Like you really got to know them. They got to know you, and that you're there with them as well.
100%.
Wow, wow. So my next question is, how has being Asian impacted your values, standards, norms, expectations, or traditions?
Oh wow. So like Jean, I was born in Seoul, South Korea, even though I didn't spend too much of my life in Korea because Jean and I are like sisters, by the way, because we share so much of similarity. My father was a diplomat, and I lived in 7 different countries growing up. Anyway, despite that, I was still raised with traditional, I guess, Korean values. We call it Yugyo Sasang in Korean. It's the Confucian ideals like kindness,
Mm,
humility, respect. And that part was greatly emphasized in my family, especially is the aspect of humility, being humble, right? Do not
mm,
brag about your achievements. When good things happen, play it down and then play it down even more. Be humble. Don't celebrate. And this drove me crazy, right? Because ever
mm.
since I was young, I knew I loved attention. Like, I wanted to win that first prize in math competition because it felt so good to hold that trophy in the podium. Like, oh my God, I did it. I wanted to be the most popular kid in school because, man, like, it would feel so good to be the valedictorian speaking on behalf of your class, like, so on and so forth. But every time I craved this, I also felt guilty, like I was doing something wrong, that my achievements were like guilty pleasures and not something that I should be proud of. So as I was building my career, I found myself struggling to find that right balance between advocating for myself and being confident versus being like a humble servant leader. But you know what?
Mm.
Like, ultimately, it comes down to the quality of your work, right? And that respect you earn from your team, your peers, because I can scream and shout all day long, craving attention. Look at me, I'm the best. But if you didn't put in the work to actually earn that respect, then it doesn't matter. So
I love that. That's such a great. It's a balance, right, of
exactly.
confident and humility as well, which just ties in nicely. Which a lot of people, ask who are interested in career advancement or adding that next level, how to really position yourself to get a seat at the table.
Oh, great question. And I apologize. I am allergic to the whirl, so I may blow my nose in the middle.
No problem.
It's I don't have cold. I don't have COVID. Just allergies. But yeah, how do you get a seat at the table? I love that question, because last International Women's Day in March, every year there's a theme. Every year there's a theme, and the last year's theme was choose to challenge. For those of you who were really participating, and we encouraged Loblaw company, we encouraged everybody to think about how they will choose to challenge, whether it's stereotype, bias, or prejudice that is still against women, especially women of color. And I thought about what my choose to challenge statement was going to be. And then I remember this quote. I wish I made it up, but I seen it somewhere else, like Instagram or Pinterest. And it goes like, be the kind of woman who fixes another woman's crown without telling the world that it was crooked. And that spoke to me. That spoke to me so much, because I wasn't always that woman. In fact, I was actually the woman who would point out, like I would be the first to point out, like, oh my God, that's crooked. Because for the longest time, as I was navigating through my career, I thought there was only one seat available for a woman like me on the table. And instead of fighting to get more seats on the table, I was just busy making sure that I was the one who got to sit on that one seat in the table.
Yeah.
So when I used to meet talented Asian women like you, Diana, Jean, I used to be so insecure, so threatened, because in my mind, there were not enough seats for both you and I. It was either you or me, right? So I wanted to make darn sure that I looked better than you. And I never took time to advocate or empower another woman. And I knew they were fantastic and I admired them, but I was like, no, I need to be better, right? And that journey was so lonely, and that journey was so empty. And even though I worked extremely hard to eventually get the seat on the table, when I looked around, Diana, and I saw that there were 9 white men sitting on the table, and I have nothing against white men, but I realized, yeah, I may have a seat, but I don't have a voice. And that's when I realized that I've been doing it all wrong. I've been thinking about it all wrong. Truly meaningful progress is not about just me winning, but all of us doing together, winning together. And I can only win when I take time to bring up and empower others, just like you're doing today, Diana. And we need more of us to advocate for each other and celebrate each other. So thank you, Diana, for taking time to celebrate us.
Thank you. Oh my God, as I'm listening to this, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling so motivated and inspired. Like, I want to be part of Angie's team. Do you guys feel this? I'm like, I just want to be part of Angie's team here. And I just love that. I just love your messaging right now. It is really then winning together, bringing us all along to all rise together to win, right? And I want to talk a little bit about this confidence piece here, is how to be confident in communicating your thoughts and ideas, especially when we're trying to present to, let's say, management. I hear a lot of people have reached out to me, especially with this series right now, like being Asian as well, the value of being humble or only speak up when I really have a good idea. Like, how do you really be confident in communicating that, your ideas?
Oh my God. I love that question. I actually get asked this question a lot, because somehow people think I exude confidence when I talk, right? And I think I think I'm definitely a lot less nervous before I had a lot of chance to speak in front of people like I am doing today. But definitely it wasn't always the case. I still do. I used to shake in my boots, even if it were just a small presentation to my tiny team of 3. I'd be like, oh my God. And I used to actually, on word for word, like, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, that I used to script out what I was going to say.
Me too.
And even then I would be like, talk like this. I would be so nervous, because it wasn't coming from heart. It was, I'm just nervous. And Diana, at the end of the day, there actually isn't one magical day where you wake up one morning and you think to yourself, you know what? This is a day. I am now a confident speaker. There's no magical day, right? But yeah, like any skill set, confident communication requires practice and experience. And before you have a chance to present, here's a couple tips. Try recording even a few minutes of what you're gonna say, like when you're rehearsing it, and watch it. And you will cringe so hard because we hate hearing our own voices. It's so terrible watching ourselves speak. But it will teach you a lot of great things, whether it's the content, your body language, the speed. And you know why? Because you are your own toughest critic and you will pick up the best detail, right? You got to practice. You got to also seek for feedback. Tell somebody before you're about to do something, tell somebody you trust that you would look for their feedback after the presentation. So then they will intently listen, and then they are ready to give you constructive feedback instead of being caught off guard. Because you know what, when you catch people off guard, they're like, oh no, it was great. And you don't get anything out from it, right? And lastly, don't wait. This is the Asian part. This is a humble part that I had to work on. Don't wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder for a chance for you to speak. You got to put your hand up. You got to lean in for an opportunity because, again, confidence doesn't happen overnight. You need to build it. You need to challenge it. And you need to be outside your comfort zone to practice it. So those would be my little tips.
That's amazing advice. And I want to tell you that I used to script out what I would say until I'm like, I want to connect with my audience. I'm going to start speaking from my heart. That changed everything.
Oh my God, I know. Hello, dear audience. How are you doing today?
It changed everything for me. And I still, to this day, even though I'm doing lives every week, I watch my replays and see areas of how I can improve. I would want to drop my ums and uhs and ers as well. I do that there. And I started being more vulnerable too this year in terms of more storytelling, doing this to be more get more comfortable on camera so that I could speak up, like you said, choose to speak up. And you can only get better by practicing and actually doing
100%.
it. Right? You can't do it just by thinking about it. So I love that. So what's your advice for your younger self? What advice would you give for your younger self?
I'm young now. I'll give my okay. Advice I'd give my younger self. Well, for one, stop wearing heels. Oh my God. I used to go to school wearing strange heels because I was so insecure about my height. I'm 5'2". And I thought it made me look good. And by the time I walked an hour to school, I'm not even paying attention to class anymore because my feet would hurt so much, right? Honestly, I would tell my younger self to stop caring so darn much about what others would think or say and take time to honor yourself, honor your body, honor your mind. Stop caring so much about what your boyfriend of the month says. You won't even remember his name in 3 weeks, right? Stop trying to recreate new version of your life that fits the spec of others when every time someone new comes into your life, and just know how freaking fabulous you all are today.
Oh, amazing. And what advice would you give to your future self?
Oh, wow. I hope my future self would have found different ways to feel alive other than my obsessive commitment to my work. I love doing it. I think about, work-life decisions as opposed to balance. And I choose to be workaholic, and I am happy. But, my executive coach challenged me to create a life mandala. So it looks like sort of a pie chart, and you fill it with things that occupy my thoughts and my days. It can be work, family, significant other, health, finances, whatever it may be. And I colored in 2/3 of my day with work-related thoughts, right? So hopefully my future self, I would be, still celebrating success in my career, but scale back on how much I allow work sort of to take over my day.
I love that advice. It's that work-life harmony and integration as well, right? And I mean, being an achiever, I can totally relate to this, right? Being an achiever, you're thinking about work, you're obsessed about it, and that's how it also helps you to rise as well. So I totally get it. I would say even for me, I think ever since having kids, I stopped wearing heels, and I decided you have only so much time in the day, and I got to make time for them. I can't just be all work, right?
100%.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I would love to one day be part of your team meetings and hear your speeches. It's just so motivating and inspiring. I would love to. If you have a great motivational talk, I would love to be there. I love it, love it, love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Angie. I appreciate you as well. Keep rocking and shining, and keep representing as well.
And thanks for everybody in the chat. I've been reading your love. It's such a great team. So thank you. Have a great long weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye now. Oh my goodness, that was on fire, wasn't it? It was so good. So many nuggets. I will be reviewing them later on. Next up, we have Ivan H. Lee, who's joining us all the way from the US here. Ivan has 15 years of experience at Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies like Apple and T-Mobile, leading initiatives in learning and talent development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and corporate social responsibility. He'd helped to reimagine T-Mobile's ethical leadership training program, which drives the do it the right way culture, and one of America's most trusted and loved companies. Both in and outside of the workplace, he advances social justice, economic empowerment, and capacity building. Are you guys ready to welcome Ivan on stage? Type in "Go Ivan" in the chat room here. All right. Hey, Ivan.
Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good all over the world. How's everyone doing today?
All over the world. It's amazing. We have people from South Africa, all over. I think it was Asia as well, like in Chicago. It's been great. It's been on fire so far. So feeling amazing here.
Yeah, I loved hearing a lot of Angie's talk, and it's just so wonderful how we're providing this wonderful energy and motivation and encouragement to our audience.
Amazing, amazing. So I'm going to kick things off with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What fulfills you?
What fulfills me? I think relationships fulfill me. Making time for the people that you care about, and developing relationships. And I think, oddly enough, conflict resolution fulfills me as well. Resolving concerns, basically.
Oh, I love that. Okay, we're going to talk more about that later. Not a lot of people like solving conflict there. I find with a lot of my clients when they go for interviews, they're like, the toughest part is like how to handle these conflict questions here. What's one thing most people don't know about you?
I enjoy skiing. We'll start with that.
Nice, skiing. That's something I haven't picked up. What's your favorite book?
I think over time, I have to say it's probably both from an academic and spiritual perspective, it's probably the Bible. It's got the most interesting stories and content and lessons, and a lot of humanity's behaviors and moralities built upon that one single book. I think it's still the best-selling book of all time, and so I would say it's pretty significant.
Nice, that's good. That's good. So let's dive into your career. Let's talk about what is it that you currently do, what's interesting about it, and what's your mandate?
Yes, so I help lead the ethical training program at T-Mobile. So that includes all of our do it the right way behaviors, and that's super cool because I often joke to people that I have a very, very simple job, and my job is to help ensure that all of our people are behaving correctly. And those behaviors range anywhere from your traditional more harassment, discrimination behaviors, but it also range to some of the how you treat your coworker behaviors as well. So it's a quite large range of behaviors that we're encouraging people to do, of course, inside the workplace, but also outside the workplace, right? There's a very fine line between our personal and our work life now. So in effect, we're able to influence people's behaviors and basically create better people. So that's the beautiful opportunity that we have.
I'm curious, how did you begin your career? Like, how did it lead to where you are today?
Yeah, I started off in sales, finance, and financial planning. And what I realized was that I have a talent in helping people understand certain things. So that has to do with adult learning, that has to do with knowledge transfer and behavior change. And so I realized I can really help shift people from point A to point B. And over time, eventually I went into the corporate training and talent development space.
Nice, nice. And what were the highs and lows in your career journey?
Well, I can share a little bit about kind of like package my whole story together with cultural upbringing and
Yeah.
career journey. Would you like me to kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We can definitely dive into that. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is kind of it helps to package, kind of address
sure.
maybe a lot of the questions that our audience might have. So my kind of career and cultural upbringing journey, I kind of have thought of it in 3 mini chapters. The first chapter is about giving voice to the powerless and the muted. So when I first immigrated to America from Taiwan, I landed in East LA. And believe it or not, my first experience of America was actually the Rodney King riots. The LA was basically on fire. And so I thought, wow, this is America. And for those who don't know, basically, Rodney King was a black man who was beat by white police officers, and it was one of the earlier examples of police brutality that was caught on film. I mean, police brutality has gone on for many years, but having it caught on film sparked a lot of the riots and I would say social unrest, more accurately, in LA. Yeah. So in any case, from an early time, I saw that happening, and I personally also experienced a lot of personal discrimination and harassment as a person of color, as a non-native English speaker. And some things that I recognized was that people around me were experiencing the same thing. So for example, even in taking care of my folks who were taking care of just the bills, right? They would call certain phone companies or utility companies, and I noticed that they were being muted because of they did not have as much of a control over the English language. And so I realized from early time that I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless and to give power to the muted, because of the concerns and the discrimination. And so that kind of progresses through the second part of my journey, which is converting hurt to healing. So through junior high and high school, I continued to experience these inequities, but I started to realize that oddly enough, I experienced these inequities by the hands of other communities of color. And so this perplexed me greatly. So I researched and I investigated into why this was happening, and I found 2 things. I found hurt people, right? Hurt people who are hurt also tend to hurt others. They pass that on. And then the second thing is that actually all these communities of color, we had one common enemy, and that common enemy is whoever desires to consolidate power by setting up the systems of oppression that pit underprivileged groups against each other, that pit underrepresented groups against each other, right? So it's about the systemic racism and the power dynamics. That is our common enemy. So my personal journey continued to convert the hurt to healing for myself and for others by immersing myself in those communities. I was in relationships. So for example, I played in a mariachi band, which is a traditional Mexican musical arrangement. And I also played basketball, and most of my friends were African American. So I knew that personal relationships were part of the key to learning and healing. I want to pause there to see if you have any questions before I go on to chapter 3.
No, this is amazing. I actually find it very fascinating because it's helping me and the audience, I think, to understand what drives you as well, like because of some of these incidents or things that you've encountered that influences the choices that you make in your life and career as well. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, let's move on to chapter 3. I love this.
Sure. So now moving on into my professional life, I have to work on some of these matters formally and out of necessity, because I personally continue to experience inequities in the workplace. But it was very complex. So I titled this chapter Power and Privilege, because I started to recognize my own power and privilege. So for example, I call this part of my story, math versus the bamboo ceiling. So I started to notice that in very high-level meetings, even when I was presenting, for example, to the CFO of Apple, nobody questioned my numbers. I noticed that they had questions about some of my other presentation material, but nobody ever questioned my numbers. So I definitely knew that some of that Asian math stereotype was coming to my advantage. Although I would have definitely enjoyed some constructive banter and constructive criticism around how I was presenting numbers. At the same time, I noticed that there were other people who had performance levels less than myself being promoted. And so definitely I also experienced the bamboo ceiling. So there was a double-edged sword to my identity as an Asian person. So I started to understand the power and privilege dynamics, and I channeled that energy. I started to convert my own hurt and healing by designing programs. That's how I channeled my energy. So for example, at Apple, I chaired the the Business Resource Group program, ERG, BRG. And for almost 10 years, I was a practitioner. I institutionalized DE&I behaviors and outcomes at various levels. So, for example, one thing is budget, right? You have to put your money where your mouth is. And something that I fought for and set precedence for was spending, was creating a very large budget. And a lot of companies just don't fund ERGs, but Apple did. For example, we sponsored pride parades, we paid for food and materials for in-person meetings. And then the second thing I did was to establish international chapters so that we expanded our perspective of diversity and equity inclusion beyond a North America-centric model, which often is difficult to break away from. And then finally, we were crucially involved in recruiting events all over the world. So there was a formal tie-in between employee engagement and our HR recruiting process. A lot of companies think about working on recruiting diverse talent, but they don't realize that they have to start with retaining the talent they already have to prevent the revolving door syndrome. So these were some institutional concerns that I helped work on at Apple, and now continue to work on at T-Mobile. And so that leads me to today, using my background, my stories, understanding power dynamics, understanding privilege, and these experiences give me the humility and the platform to continue to facilitate discussions with others and to advance helping other people, train other people in ethical leadership.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So just to wrap up on this, I love this, just hearing the story in your journey here. Like what's really important about this for you in terms of being involved with the DE&I work and on top of your learning development role?
So learning and leadership development is about behavior change. And so I have the great privilege of affecting behaviors that improve DEI outcomes. So I think the relationship ties in perfectly, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about the outcomes. It's about how people treat each other, and that's essentially behavior. So there's systematic change and there's also behavioral change, and I take care of both. So for example, right now I also chair a recruitment and retention committee, and so some of the best practices that require behavior change are especially among hiring managers, right? The way they screen candidates, the way leaders do succession planning, the way people evaluate and promote employees. So there's actually many opportunities to show them through talent development a better way.
That's amazing. That's great to hear that. And what changes have you seen in terms of improvements in the last 5 years in the DE&I space?
Oh, there has been some significant improvements. So I spoke about the increase of budget. I spoke about the improvement of hiring and promotion practices. So these major concerns have been happening in the corporate space, both at an institutional level and then also at the grassroots level, right? Many more employees are demanding that employers, especially Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, step up as a condition of employment. So I think the tides are turning, right? There's definitely a desire for organizations to step up because employees have leverage. Otherwise, they're going to lose the talent. So I think that's something that's really beautiful about what's happening.
That's great to hear that. And so, as an individual, how to speak up and stand out as a person of color or an underrepresented community there?
So I have three action items that I can suggest to our audience, which is the first is to participate in the programs in BRGs, ERGs, and other company events. Number one is participation. So, for example, maybe write an article for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion newsletter. Educate yourself. Read articles and join workshops. I recently, as part of my personal continuing education, I recently joined a bystander intervention workshop from the organization called Holla Back. And that helps people to learn how to step in when they see bad things happening to other people. So that's very important as well. The second thing is to practice allyship with those in positions of power. It's about empathy, and it's about being authentic. So, for example, that's really the nexus for change. It's the relationship that the VP or the SVP, whoever that person is, that's what matters. The person who's sitting across from you in the boardroom, in the meeting room. At the end of the day, a lot of leaders, right, they have diversity, equity, inclusion metrics. They see, okay, this is our demographic change, this is our promotion rates. They see those metrics because that's available in basically HR reporting. But at the end of the day, I don't think they care as much about the metrics rather than their personal relationships in their sphere of influence. So my point is that the vector starts with you. The vector starts with these leaders having a relationship with people like yourself. And so when you practice allyship, when you're authentic, when you're empathetic with them, and when you establish strong relationships, just because you're truly interested in that person, that's where they can learn from you, and that's where their perspectives can change.
I love that. It's what you can do, right, to help them see things from a different perspective there.
Yeah, absolutely, Diana. And then one more thing. The last advice is about learning and practicing executive presence. So you may consider a coach, maybe even a coach like Diana. And particularly for Asians, right? We were mostly taught to be strong individual contributors. I think I remember Angie spoke about this concern about it culturally, right? Kind of keep your head down, do your work, be humble, be quiet. And so in understanding those aspects, what that translates to in terms of a corporate power dynamic is that Asians were mostly trained to be ICs, individual contributors, rather than VPs and above. In terms of the character and the qualities, right? The cultural qualities. And so the strengths of visibility, likability, politics, those aspects, credibility, and also, to be frankly speaking, you have to practice politics. You have to practice how to say and not say certain things in front of certain audiences. Those critical skills, you have to practice that. You have to go through training. You have to have coaching. So my point is to use coaches, use programs such as, for example, Crucial Conversations, and maybe some of the Franklin Covey programs to practice your executive presence.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think this is why I'm so motivated with doing series like this as well. Like, I have been getting more people reaching out to me for how do I really speak up, or how can I really be my authentic self? How can I still embrace my own cultural values, but still and thrive in a more like a Western environment here? And so I think it's important to start talking about this, because that's going to help all of us to rise and be more aware in what we can do to embrace the differences as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And my another question here, 2 more questions, is how to respond to AAPI hate.
I think from my perspective, first is, of course, recognition, is to raise the profile of these events, to speak up about them. So I think for both people who are experiencing that as identifying as an AAPI person, as well as our allies, it's the same behaviors are there, which is to raise the profile to let people know, like, hey, this is happening, because one of the biggest concerns recently is basically fake news and misinformation. So typically, when there's more people and credible people that are raising the profile of these concerns, that's one way to stop API hate, is to say this is happening. And so I think that's number one. The second is figuring out ways to be an ally, figuring out how to educate yourself about what's happening. So, for example, there's some great publications in the last couple of years from PBS and from NPR about the history of AAPI discrimination in North America. And I have to admit, I think it's mostly focused on what's happening in the United States. But I think some of that translates. And then also figuring out vectors where you can personally have behaviors. So, for example, I spoke about the stand-up, the bystander intervention training. So that's a great training to have, and that applies to any kind of discrimination and harassment that you witness. And just to frame that, I like to help people understand that discrimination and harassment, microaggressions, unconscious bias, conscious bias, they're all different sides, the facets of the same die, right? They're all different. They all are part of the same thing. You cannot separate them. So addressing one thing helps to address some of these other things. You got to kind of look at the root cause. So for people who learn about how to step in and step up when they hear things happening to other people, that helps them to understand, oh, wow, this is happening to other people. This might, maybe I don't experience this, but maybe one day this might happen to me too. So I have to step up because I'm personally invested in resolving these concerns for myself and also for my community. So I think that's a really powerful way to stop AAPI hate as well.
Amazing. Thank you. And my last question is, what career advice would you give to your younger self? I would do more research. I would ask more. So, for example, earlier in my career, I did not ask as much for raises or promotions. And then what I did, I experienced the bamboo ceiling. And so part of that, I'm looking back, it's like, yes, there were systemic concerns that were holding me down, but then also, I could have, had more information that gave me leverage. So now we have, Glassdoor, we have Blind, we have all sorts of publicly available compensation information and company data that will help give employees and people more leverage in negotiation. So I think that's something I would give my younger self. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your journey, your insights as well. I can definitely feel why you're so passionate about what you do and what you stand for. So thank you for sharing that there. So for those who want to check out more, feel free to check out Ivan's website, Ivan H. Lee here. Follow him on LinkedIn as well to learn more about diversity, equity, inclusion. Thank you so much, Ivan.
My pleasure, Diana. I look forward to being part of the other speakers that you have lined up. What a wonderful day. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, we got amazing speakers lined up today. All right, you take care. Bye now.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. So we've had 3 speakers so far. I'm going to give you guys a little quick, 1-minute break here. And then we're going to bring in Daniel Yeung here, who's my former mentor back at TELUS. Super excited to have him. So we'll take a 1-minute break and we'll be right back. Okay. All right, welcome back to the Dare to Differentiate live show on the Amplifying Asian Voices series. So we just completed 3 speaker fireside chats, and next up we have 2 more speakers, and we're going to be talking to Daniel Yeung. Daniel has over 20 years of leadership experience across multiple functional areas within TELUS. In his current role as Director of Customer Experience Strategy and Operations, Daniel leads a national team of 350 team members providing support to our healthcare professionals. In addition, Daniel is the chair of Mosaic at TELUS, which is the employee resource group representing multiculturalism, advocating for diversity and inclusion with over 900 members. Outside of TELUS, Daniel volunteers as a mentor to new Canadians. He is an advisory member for the Cycling and Pedestrian Advisory Committee in Markham and for George Brown College Analytics Program Advisory Committee. If he's not volunteering or working, you'll likely find Daniel training for a marathon. Are you guys excited and ready? Type and go, Daniel. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Diana. Good to see you.
So great to see you. Oh my goodness. I just have so many wonderful memories with you when back in the day at working at TELUS. And I just want to say thank you for being my mentor back then. And thank you for putting me on a project where I met my husband as well.
Oh yeah, like I didn't know that mentoring turns into like matchmaking, and I'm so glad that we remain friends all these years. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're going to start off with the rapid fire questions. What fulfills you?
That's a very good question. I actually have a conversation with people this morning. I think about giving and contributing. Fulfillment means different things to different people. When I was in my 30s, it's about paying off the mortgage, watching my kids grow up. But right now, it's not about accomplishment. It's about contribution. It's really what it drives me day in and day out.
Contribution. Yeah, that's been the consistent theme I'm hearing today. It's about contribution, giving back, making a difference there. What's one thing most people don't know about you?
Well, you just told people that I run marathon. When people see me, they actually don't really see that I'm diabetic, and I was overweight. My career, my health was just in a very crumbling stage 12 years ago. I picked up running, almost died, and because I just didn't think I would make it as a marathon runner. I finished the first one, came back the second year, finished the second one, and third year to the point I started running 3-4 marathons a year. Qualified for Boston a couple of years ago. Then what I thought was not achievable. You don't start being an athlete at 40, and it happens. So people know that I run, but they didn't know why I run.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing the why there. I didn't know that either. What's your favorite book?
I don't like reading. I like podcasts. I like things. But there are 2 books that are memorable. I never say it's a favorite. I always say they're memorable, because sometimes the concept. One book is about for what I talk about when I talk about running. It's a Japanese writer, short story writer. I forgot Murakami is the last name. And it's all about the intertwines between running marathons and life. And he has a very interesting life too. And then he also become some kind of professor that I think at Harvard or Boston somewhere. But it's a really interesting book. It's about running, but it's not really about running. It's about life.
About life. I love that. And what's your superpower?
I no superpower, but just like marathon, when I start something, I finish it. You see me cross through a finishing line, but I will finish it. I don't give up easily.
Yeah. And I mean, because I've worked with you before, I just know, for you, I really feel like you really care. You really care about the people that are on your team. You want to develop them. And I think this is why you're so involved with what you do outside of work as well. So let's dive into your career journey a bit more. What's interesting about what you currently do?
Well, you mentioned that I support team members and healthcare space. So in a way that most people think in healthcare you want to make a difference. To me, what I find interesting is it's not about the story about a healthcare story, how a health provider to provide better care. Is everything that I do at work is about changing lives, lives of the frontline team members that otherwise we've been stuck on the phone all day long. What about their life? And then we expect them to help out the provider. What about the provider who are stuck in the system that could be making, critical decision that affect the lives of the patient? So to me, the job can be there's an organization, decision, there are many things about the business term, but the way I look at my job, that is really about changing and shaping and affecting lives. And also because I'm chair for Mosaic and I'm also a volunteer as a mentors. So I integrate everything that I do is about, really it's not about human-centered design, design thinking is about everything that we think about is about the people on the other side. How do I affect them? And it's really, that's sort of what I think is interesting is the first thing I think about is the people as opposed to the metrics. I used to be a metrics guy, as you know. That's why it's very interesting because I started out it's all about metrics.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's fascinating. It's like moving from being metrics and more being people oriented. What would you say are the highs and lows in your career journey? What were some of those lessons learned?
Oh, I think go back to the year that I found out I was diabetic, the year after that I started running. I was reaching at the peak of my so-called, I thought it was my career. We're promoted as a senior leader. You have a large team, a large mandate. Is that you're indestructible. You just want to kind of say yes to everything. And I let my, work took over my life. I think that is the hard lesson. I didn't eat right, didn't look after myself, relationship, on paper. Like I can always fake it, looks amazing on LinkedIn. You see me smiling every day. You don't see that. It was broken health-wise in many fronts. And I never would tell people about it until a number of years later. But I really gone through the load as like, oh man, I would die. Oh boy, Sebastian is only 1 year old. I might not see him graduate from university. That fear that really come into why am I doing what I do? So I get into a very difficult path to get myself rethink and rewire. How do I actually get myself out of this and get the most out of it? And in fact, my life after that point has been amazing.
Wow.
I'm healthier than most people now, and I don't take medication. But I just say that was a critical moment of my life that it's a bit of shame I didn't share with people because people see who you are and talk to you. And those are the period that you and I we know each other, you were sort of married, but you didn't know that there was a bit of broken inside.
Wow. Yeah. And I think it's so important to take care of ourselves, right? Like, yes, like even right now in the pandemic, I can see this a lot from people I talk to is, people are burnt out or fatigued. And like, we really have to take care of our physical health, our mental health in order to enjoy life and do amazing work as well.
And let me share something. Like just listen to Ivan, and I always joke about, think about a graph. When you're in the 20s, your first job, you work hard for a year or two, you move up very quickly, and you know that. You pick the best paying job, the sexiest job, and then you move into people leadership, and then you're like indestructible. You're going up, and then bam, you have kids. Whether you're mom or dad, doesn't matter. You have kids, lack of sleep. Oh, then the kindergarten, there's homework, there's this, and then second kids come along. Most people reach that point, I call it hit the wall. The curve become full stop. I think that I reached that point beyond, and I keep saying that I can put in everything in my work. And then, kids grow up, everything's fine, got promoted, everything was fine, but my body just couldn't sustain it.
Yeah. That's good to hear. What has helped you get to where you are today? Like what advice do you have for others who want to do something and set up in that similar direction?
Relationship people. For me, I didn't intentionally that a network will help you, but I think there are two mindsets. One is the internal mindset and what I do. One of the things I really now preach to people is about, having a continuous improvement mindset. My favorite, one of the TED Talk is Steve Jobs, the graduation speech, the commencement speech about, when you look back, everything that you do kind of connected. But at the time you're doing it, you don't know. My success is about continuous improvement and keep on learning. It's not about learn the big thing. People talk about, well, this is a big data time. Let's rush over and learn big data. To me, it's about look at your environment that you are in. What are the things that you'll continue to improve and learn? Pick one thing at a time, but don't stop. Because learn not because you need a promotion. Learn because it's help your mental stimulation. The more you learn, the more positive you are. But without knowing that, the foundation that you build, when there comes a new challenge you have so many more toolkits that can help you. And I
Yeah.
think that is so important. Just like running, you start with slow run a lot of slow run before you join a race. You don't go from I want a race and I go for a race. The same concept.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really agree. This whole continuous learning mindset is so important, like especially in such a fast-paced, changing world right now. That I was like, if we're not growing, we're dying, and so it's so important to stay relevant there. So let's move into about your cultural upbringing. How has being Asian impacted your values, standards, norms, expectations, or traditions? Tell us a little bit about
Boy,
that.
I was such an unaware guy way back. Things happen. I just deal with it as it come. But recently, the last few years, when I work in diversity, then actually the first thing I did was to look back. Why I do what I do, why I say things the way I say, why I make certain decisions is, I think one of my mentors actually say, no, keep digging, go back to your childhood. That was so powerful. When I look at then now I talk about the upbringing. I'll give you a bit of context. Both my parents left China through the Cultural Revolution. So they moved to Hong Kong with literally nothing, and then become an entrepreneur. Then my dad worked really hard. I never see him at home. 5 siblings, we don't get along well because it's a small apartment. You just everyone trying to create their own space. So I always trying to find my own space growing up. But at the same time, seeing what my parents did, I always learned that when you want to get things done, you need to roll up your sleeve. Just sort of tedious, however, there's no good word, bad word. There's work to be done, and that's work. Just do it.
Yeah.
Because so to me, that really shaped me that it's the type of person I am. I always need to find space, but I also know the value of hard work. Regardless of what the reward, you need to work hard and work consistently. And so those are the things that ingrained in me from my mom and my dad. When I see it, they're very opposite personality, but one thing that is in common is work hard.
Work hard.
When I came to
Yeah.
Canada at 18, it sort of didn't really speak the language and really then have to learn the Canadian way, but I didn't really know. So the first few years about the multicultural way, you only hang out with international students. I spoke different languages, but it's sort of what is Canadian, I didn't know. But until I started to really make friends and started to understand the Canadian culture, so I started to question is at first I gravitate toward anything Western is good because you don't have it. And I grew up in a more of a cultural environment where we learn to say the British is better, English is better. So it is already ingrained in you that everything I learned is better than what I had. That's stuck with me for many years. Even when it brings to the workplace, sometimes you talk about the Asian mindset, right? Individual contributor is the best you can do, not leaders. But it's sometimes that yes, when you have in school, in years, they ingrained it in you that your first language is not English, you're not good
Yeah.
enough. That
Yeah.
just really kind of took me many years to kind of reframe the world for myself to really see that yes, yeah, like difference is strength as opposed to different is not good enough.
Yes, difference is strength, guys. Type it in there, comment, hashtag difference is strength. I love that. So let's dive in and talk about why are you so actively involved in the community and giving and volunteering activities while maintaining a heavy workload?
Everyone have this pet project when they retire, they would do on the weekend, they do. I don't have one, but one thing I remember in my 4th year university in Victoria, I was at summer school talking to the guy next to me. We're just doing summer class and we're talking about what's next. And he said, "Oh, Daniel, I have this figured out. I have connection to the bank. I'm studying CGA. I'm going to be doing this in the next 2 years. You watch." I was looking at him as no one taught me this. I have no plan. If you told me this, what I could have done differently, I wouldn't waste 2 years of skipping classical and hiking all the time, and now I'm a little bit lost. And I moved to Toronto and move on. But one thing that stuck in my mind was, what if someone mentored me way back when I needed most? My parents actually told me they're in manufacturing business. If you're in Hong Kong, if you're in the manufacturing business, I can introduce you to commercial loan bankers. But you're in Canada, I can't help you. That's my dad directly. I can't help you. You're on your own. So in my mind, I always say that, yes, you gave me the education, gave me everything, but I really thought that if I had a mentor, my life would be so different. So part of my pet project, I always say, one day I'm going to go back to UVic and be that mentors that I wanted to be. I never get to go back, but that since you met me way back, I always behave like I take good interest in new grad and student to people. Because I genuinely believe that no one should walk the path that I walk. It's a long walk to the destination. So I start doing the informal mentoring, really about taking an interest to share perspective. It started sharing perspective, not just about mentoring. The term of mentoring didn't exist until I started becoming a mentor, but I didn't realize I've been doing that for years.
That's amazing to hear that. I mean, I think that's taking interest in others so important. I always talk about curiosity, like being curious in others and be authentic in those conversations, develop meaningful relationships as well. So I want to dive in a bit more about the topic you're talking, finding fulfillment in your work. I want to first start with how to cope with job dissatisfaction, and especially, again, in your case, so you've been in the same company for quite some time as well, and I'm hearing a lot right now from people who in work feeling that a bit of that job dissatisfaction. Like, what's your advice to that and how to cope with that?
That is it's not an easy way. Easy to give advice, but very difficult to live in that space. So I would tell you that I can give you advice that worked for me, worked for a lot of people, but it takes a lot for you to reframe your mind. In my mind, yes, when you're not happy with a job, some people will blame the job. The task is boring, mundane. Blame the boss. They don't value what I bring to. Blame something else. I don't know. Blame the traffic. It takes a long time to suck in forward to get to work. You call it out because when it's not satisfied, you always find a way to blame. The way I kind of tell people though is, the job is a job. You get paid to do the job. That's what my work ethic comes in. You get paid. Did you get paid? You get paid. Then you should be happy you get paid. But to be satisfied, think about, reframe what success looks like to you. What's good looks like to you. Don't subscribe to your notion that, yes, because the manager told me and my objective, this is what success looks like, therefore I'm not achieving it, I'm not happy. Satisfaction is a feeling. It's in you. How you tell how your mind tell your heart what is good is you. You can't blame anyone. It's in you. So to me, that's the first thing you need to accept, that yes, I'm not happy. It's about, if I keep doing what I do, I'm not happy. I have to change the way how I do it. Some people might not have the authority to change what they do, because as a new immigrant, it's a survival job. You need the paycheck. You can change what you do, but you can change the way how you approach the work. That's why continuous improvement mindset will break you out of the cycle as the same job. No, it's the same job. You can still find win. You can find improvement. You can find learning. If you find all those things every day, people practice gratitude. 3 things a day. The first accomplishment that I do in the morning had nothing to do with my job. Finish my run, check. Has my espresso coffee kissed my kid? Check. It's an accomplishment. Something that make your bed is a check. You can do that. If you start your day with check, 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 you have a better day. It'll get you through lunchtime for sure. But if you start your day that, I'm dragging, it's Monday, you already have a defeated mindset going to work, you will miss out on all the roses around you because you already say that it's a bad day. So to me, it starts with you.
Start with you. And I love that. And it's also changing what you're hearing is changing that perspective and changing how you feel and measure success and happiness. And even for me right now, like Carson and I, like we get the kids like ready for school in the morning. Right now, because the weather is better, like we would walk them to school and we enjoy that moment together. Like this morning, the kids just wanted to hold hands, that all of us all holding hands walking to school, and just we enjoy that moment together. There's those little things that make a difference, right? And going for walks as well, doing meditations. I do like to do meditations there. All make a difference there. That's great.
And I would talk about one thing though, yes. Like when I watch the call center and people in general, I ask them the question, what do you do when you're not working? Sometimes in between work, when you're disconnected, when you're disengaged, you pick up the phone, look at Facebook, and start seeing how happy the worlds are, or how angry the worlds are. None of these things is helpful for you. To me, that I look at it as, do you think they're truly constructive to you? Not there's an escape from what you're not happy with. There's a very big distinction. If you find mechanism and the action you take is to escape from being dissatisfied with job or people, you will always in that unhappy state, because this instrument, they're just a dreadful temporary relief. Figure a way, talk to people. That's why when I talk to people that need your help, may not be less fortunate than you, need your help, because it'll bring your perspective that yes, I have more to give, I'm in a better state than you. That's why mentor peoples will really help me connect the world to see a lot of people that wish to be in my unhappy job. They will be very happy to do in my unhappy job. And why am I unhappy about this? You're gonna fix the way you think. Sometimes having a mentor, having a friend, having a coach is how they unstuck you that way, if you can't do it yourself.
I like that. So let's dive in a little bit more, which I feel like you've already talked a little bit. It's like finding that fulfillment in your work, even if you've been in the same company or role for a while.
Oh yeah, like my pet peeve is whether you're a call center rep or not. I hate listening to people saying that I'm stuck. Because my first job in the call center, I was stuck for 18 months. Oh, I hated the job. I hated this and that. I just feel I'm stuck. But it didn't stop me from doing what I do. I learned how to do Excel. I learned how to write macros. I learned how to learn to type. I used to be a 2-finger typer. I learned how to type. I do things that will make my job performance better to distract me, but I know those skills is actually helpful for me. So that I always find learning opportunity that will start with just unstuck myself from work. But fulfillment is different. Fulfillment is a feeling. It's not about resume, what you put on. What I find that, just like I talked earlier, go to work and live your life with a mindset of to serve and to contribute. Celebrate when you have accomplishment. Don't get me wrong, celebration is great. But celebration doesn't last forever. Most people will override your accomplishment because they want their accomplishment too. So all their business record, all the things that you build in the corporate world, the moment you leave the job, someone else comes in, you erase everything and start over again. Accomplishment is not lasting. Fulfillment and giving is a feeling that you get will carry you, that you can be a fulfilled team member by doing the same job for 10 years if you carry that mindset. But if you've carried a mindset, yes, I need to move up, I need accomplishment, I need recognition. Again, this is extrinsic stimulation to make you feel fulfilled. Then I said, we scale what is success, what fulfillment to you. To me, I said, oh yes, align things to things that you have control.
Yeah. And I love what you said, because the work that I do as a coach and helping people to land a job, a lot of times, it's to get them to think about their accomplishments and results, and because employers value the tangibles, right? But I think what we're really talking about here, to find that fulfillment in that work, it needs to be inner. It needs to find that meaning. And I know for me, I'm more fulfilled knowing that my clients are transforming than, let's say, me accomplishing like a tangible, let's say, revenue goal. Like for me, that's what gives me meaning, and that's why I've been able to do it for the last 10 years as well. Is to, like you said, serving and giving and making a difference there.
Yeah, like that I watch you grow so much, promoting in the market, you talk about the numbers, how many people get promoted and all that. You can talk about that. But when I talk to you, when you introduce people to me, it's about the story of the individual.
Yeah.
That is fulfillment, not the numbers.
Not the numbers. You're absolutely right. I love that. And finally, what's the career advice you have to give to your younger self?
I think Ivan actually hit it on. Ask question, do research. I'm an introvert. I'm more an outgoing person now. But I think that if I were to tell myself that yes, for a lot of introvert and people that are less outgoing or don't have access to resources like my parents could give me, we tend to stop ourselves in our own mind. We try to say, you can't do it, it's not possible, it's not for you because they are better than this, they are better. So to me though, yes, if I were to ask myself this, just be curious and just ask for help if you need to. Tell people that you don't know. You can build trust if you hold everything inside. Be comfortable to be vulnerable, to share what fear you most, what you want, but ask for help but help people. Like start building. It's not about building network. The network that I build tends to be the more I add value and help people, the more people reach out to me as opposed to when I first year or two, my LinkedIn network, I first look at the title. I look at this. Now I don't. I look at your history. Are you immigrants or not? What type of journey you have, your career journey that lead to you reaching out to me, or I reaching out to you to learn from you? I really think that when I look at the young self, yes, though again, be comfortable in who you are, then just ask questions and reach out to people. You don't ask, you don't get. But I've spent many years afraid of asking because I was afraid of rejection.
Okay. Ask for more. This is something I talk a lot about, which ties into speaking up as well. So, thank you so much, Daniel. This was so amazing. I really appreciate you, and I really can't wait to see you in person soon. When things open up back up again to catch up in person there.
Thank you, Diana. I have a blast.
All right. You have a good long weekend. You take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye now. Oh my goodness, wasn't that amazing? Oh my goodness. So it's Daniel, who I worked with over 10 years ago. Had the honor to work with him, to also be my mentor as well, and met my husband. So super grateful for him and our friendship here. So, all right. So we have our final speaker of the day. I am super excited to welcome Singh Hazra to our show here today. Tej currently leads Korn Ferry's Canadian DE&I and practice, assisting organizations identify quantitative and qualitative evidence to design DE&I strategies that are relevant and sustainable. With over 15 years in diversity, equity, inclusion, Tej has amassed both regional and global expertise addressing and embedding open-minded leadership, intentional talent attraction, employee development, and establishing brand marketplace integrity into organization strategies. Prior to joining Korn Ferry, he was the head of diversity, equity, inclusion for HSBC Canada. Tej's extensive experience with the Employment Equity Act of 1995 saw HSBC recognized for 3 consecutive years for their outstanding commitment to employment equity. Prior to joining HSBC, he was the head of diversity and inclusion for IBM Canada, where he led IBM's global emerging issue response team. Tej was born and educated in England, and this is his 25th anniversary of being in Canada. And today's topic that Tej came up with is, no, I'm not your limo driver. So let's welcome Tej to the stage here.
Hey.
Hi, Tej.
Hey, Diana. Good afternoon to you.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And I hope you're doing well. That's quite the marathon of interviews.
I love it. I'm on fire, I have to say. I feel so inspired and empowered. I just feel so much heart and authenticity in today's conversation. And I know I'm going to have that with you as well. So thank you so much for your time. I know you've been super busy with your work as well. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with a question. What's not in your bio that truly defines you?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm a sensitive Sagittarian. So that's a full disclosure to everybody out there. If you have a problem with a grown man showing his emotions, you may want to switch off now. Hopefully you won't. But what's not on my bio is that really my first and foremost role is being a father to a 15-year-old, our son Jenna Hall, and a partner to my long-enduring spouse and partner. That's my primary goals. and
Oh,
roles.
nice. And what fulfills you?
By the way, this is a great question. Some would say, I think my partner would say, the Discovery Channel, and that's where my partner rolls her eyes, because I can spend hours on the Discovery Channel, but truly, in all sincerity, it's watching the underdog take their place and find their space, find their voice. Seeing those around the underdog go from being bystanders to upstanders. That's what fulfills me.
Nice. And what's your superpower?
I think professionally, I would say I restore faith in relationships. I think especially in the corporate world where emotions and conversations have gone south. I've made my brand is to restore faith in relationships. But I'm also a motivator. I think one of the things that I do is help others, just like Daniel you had seen before. Truly understand what their potential is, what their purpose is, what the current opportunities are, as opposed to reflecting back on what has happened. So I think that's what my superpower is. If there is,
I love it. Yeah, well, it's what you're known for, right? What you excel at. So let's talk about your career. What's interesting about what you currently do?
I think when I went into the consulting space, so at Korn Ferry, Korn Ferry is a professional services organization, and what I do is help organizations who are truly at that sort of crossroads of understanding that we need to do something in the space of driving equity, inclusion, and diversity in the organization, but they want to do it right. And they don't want to just do it. It's not the ready, fire, and then aim, but it's really try and do the ready, aim, and then the fire there as well. So working with organizations and leaders that truly want to do the right thing are at the point where they have the courage to look long and hard in the mirror at themselves, have us come out and do diagnostics, speak to employees, speak to leaders, do all sorts of data analysis, and come back with a findings and recommendations report. And then see them run with it, and we watch and we stay with these organizations to see them flourish. And that's what I had the privilege of doing when I was at IBM and at HSBC, is seeing these organizations sort of like go through this metamorphosis of taking an idea and spawning it into a real-time program, an initiative, or a practice, which not just changed the mindsets of the employees, but also the families. The dinner conversation I was told on a regular basis when employees would go home would change. It would be around what is their employer doing differently. What is it that they were challenged with themselves? And that conversation then morphs into the dinner conversation. It morphs into and spills over to the conversations with neighbors and communities, organizations and associations with which they volunteer with.
Yeah. What were the highs and lows in your career journey?
Let's start with the lows. And we'll end on a bit of a crescendo. I think the lows is that this work, this is my 15th year doing diversity, equity, and inclusion. This work is not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
This work is it's about planting a seed and seeing that seed take root, and it may take 2 to 3 years before you start to see the fruits of your labor. So if you are looking to see instant response or instant gratification, it doesn't happen that way. So that's the lows of it, in the sense that you've got to have extreme patience. The other lows are that you will along your way hear the dirty yes, and we refer to it as the dirty yes. And and if I explain to you what it is, you'll say, yeah, I've had that myself, where you're speaking to a group, you're speaking to an individual, or you're speaking to a group, and they're all nodding yes, yeah, that's exact, yeah, we'll do that. After the meeting ends, you start to get all these emails back saying, I don't agree with this, I'm not on board here, I want to challenge you on this, right? So in front of their peers. They're all supportive. 20 minutes later, the emails start to pour in, and now you're having to not deflect, but defend and re-educate, go back and invest that time again with the individual who now who clearly just doesn't get it. So I would say that's the lows. The other lows is that you work for an organization where you have done some really great work, and they start to see the great results. Their employee engagement scores start to improve. You become an employer of choice in communities that you haven't traditionally employed. Employee volunteer, curiosity, leaders stepping up, stepping in, wanting to be part of the conversation. You start to see all of that. You start to win external awards, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, your budget gets cut, or the foot comes off the gas pedal in terms of leaders, in terms of priority, and then and having to fight for that program to stay on the radar, and remind them that how quick it is, that the old habits can come back into the organization. So. Yeah, I would say that's the lows. The highs are that you work with leaders who just were waiting for their opportunity to become involved in the conversation, and the program there as well. The highs are that you literally, and I don't take the credit individually here. There is there's talent acquisition, there's the community placement boards that we work with, and the community placement organizations that we work with. But you can change the life and the life of the family of somebody who was either unemployed or underemployed, and give them a new sense of purpose. That is the highs, and they become people. They become employees that challenge the biases of those who are currently in the workforce by demonstrating and proving that they can do the job with the right accommodations and through an equity, through the lens of true equity. They then become the champions within their community. Whether they have a physical or a visible disability, whether they are Indigenous, whether they are a new Canadian, they then, because they are gainfully employed and they're doing a professional job, they're becoming successful. They then start to get recognized from within their own communities and within their groups there as well. They're all of a sudden speaking at youth meetings. They're all of a sudden on the agenda for a conference, and you get to hear this and you see this, and that is the high. That is the ultimate high there as well.
I love that. I love that. So let's move into about your cultural upbringing. How has being Asian impacted your values, standards, norms, expectations, or traditions?
Yeah, that's something I'm pleased to be able to talk about, because I think only in recent years have I truly become to connect the two in terms of my own upbringing and what the values are that I brought to the table. I was raised as a parent of immigrants, as a child of immigrants, and I think like most people in the Asian community, and regardless if it's the Asian diaspora or whether it's the African or the wherever you are, but we were raised as children of immigrants, which means that we have a very different lens. We saw our parents go from having their education credentials completely discredited by the country that they've chosen to live in, and but we still see the humility of our parents in the sense that they raise their heads in front of their own children, and that they went from being employed in their own countries to either unemployed or underemployed, but they still raised their heads, and that they were able to safely put a roof over their children and their families' heads, put food on the table as well. And I think that for us, as the lived experience as children of immigrants, is ingrained in us. And when I speak to employers and I talk about the immigrant factor, the I factor, right? Don't underestimate what immigrants bring to the table here. When you think about the immigration process alone, for someone to come to Canada for whom English is not their first language,
Yeah.
Not only the financial burden, but the language burden that they have to navigate there as well. If that doesn't tell you about the tenacity and the persistence and the resilience of the person that's sitting in front of you, I don't know what else can, right? And I think, so that is something that's always been instilled in us. And the system makes fun of us Asians and as being, they're good at math, or they all they want to do is advocate for themselves, or education is their priority. Yes, it is, and it is for the right reason, because that's what our parents instilled in us, right? That is what we should never feel that we should be criticized for. So that system that thinks it created us, right?
Yeah.
Let's we can clap back at that system, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that. I think what I'm hearing with the story too, just the importance of the work that you do, is we got to see it from different perspectives. Like when we have immigrants, like we need to welcome them, we need to embrace them and make them feel welcome so that they can thrive as well. That's great. What challenges did you face in your life or career due to your race? How did it impact you?
For the most part, Diana, I think I have two chapters of my career. The first chapter was in England, and I was going to share this with you. It was growing up in England during the 70s, and I'm aging myself, but that was a mixed emotion, right? In the sense that England was a country that I loved, but it didn't love me back. I was constantly reminded, people of all color were constantly reminded, for the most part, that you were just visitors here, and that you were here by invitation of the country, and that you were reminded on a regular basis that you weren't wanted here, and that you shouldn't be going home wherever your home was. Now, for me, it was Southall and Middlesex, which is a quintessentially very, very strong South Asian Sikh sort of like catchment there as well. And for me to be told to go home when I was actually in Southall, it was like, where else do you want me to go? And we've all got that story to be told there as well. But I clearly have somebody who is, in addition to being having brown skin, also wears the tenet of their faith openly as well. And I know that growing up in England, I had various situations where I was, I saw friends who I thought were good friends, and over the summer, at the start of the new school year, they came back as very different people. They had shaved their heads, they had worn, they dawned on the skinhead persona with the swastika tattoos as well, and they went from being friends to being complete enemies of, I was seen as an enemy of theirs. And that just in terms of relationships, that made me rethink how I invest in relationships. And I think that has tarnished me, and I carry that, and I'm more self-aware as going into relationships with much more open-mindedness. But in the UK, I don't think, for the most part, and I speak with all sincerity here, could I have achieved this, or made the advancement in my career that I have, had I been in the UK, where there is, overt and covert racism in the system there as well? I don't know. I don't think I would have. Whereas in Canada, it's, for the most part, it's been a much more positive experience here. But having said that, we as Asians, right? We as visible minorities, right? We know through the lived experiences that we have, that there are overt, overt systems which are designed to trip us up. But more importantly, there are covert ones as well, and it's the covert ones that I worry about the most, to be honest with you. It's the structural, it's the systemic, it's healthcare, it's education. It's all of the it's being taught at a very young age that you will do this, or it's expected that that's what your people do, is it not? Right? Right, that's being shaped, and you're being shaped at a very, very early stage there as well. So I think advocating for myself, and then finding my purpose was something that I had to intentionally do. I think my early part of my career, I struggled there. I think I plateaued pretty early on there, and it wasn't until I found my purpose and I had my life-defining moment, 15
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
ago, where I found my purpose.
And I want to dive in that. Before that, could we share the story a little bit? Because I remember you telling me about it, about how you got mistaken that you were the driver.
Yeah, let's talk about the actual, and I had a few friends sort of like, contact me once they saw the title of my talk, and they said, "Really?
We got to tell the story here."
You got to tell some. Well, when it happened the first time, I thought, I'll brush it off, right? But when it happened the second and somewhat on the third time there as well, I thought there's a concerning pattern here as well. But I went to an employers award event in Montreal about 5-6 years ago, and I had driven from Toronto to Montreal. I'm privileged to drive a nice German vehicle, and I remember that I had pulled up in front of the hotel because that's what they were saying, valet parking. And I was standing, and I had just given my key, and I was standing in obviously I was wearing, it was a black tie event, and I was standing there, and the concierge there, who was not the valet person, came up to me and said, "You need to move your limo." Right? And I'm like, excuse me. He said, "You need to move that." And I said, I'm actually a guest here. I'm not a limo. And you could see the look in the face when he realized what had gone wrong. The other time it's happened is I walked into into the reception area of an organization, of a company, and there was obviously somebody who had ordered a vehicle, a ride to take them home or to the airport or wherever. And as I walked in, he gets up and says, "Are you the driver?" And I'm like walking in, heading towards reception, and he's approaching me thinking I'm the driver. And I'm like, "No, I'm not your driver," right? So these types of stereotypes, right? These types of microaggressions, they leave a mark on us. And could I have taken him to task? Yes, I could, but it wasn't the time or the place. But in hindsight, I would have loved to have spent 15 minutes with him, just letting him know the impact that assumption has made, not just on me, but also what it tells me about him as well, right? And help him go. Because one of the things that my mentor has told me, and Dinah, I'm going off on a tangent, so I did warn you about this. But one of the things that my mentor has always told me is that it's so important to meet people where they are, but it's even more important not to leave them there. So, I could have torn a strip of him, but really, in order for me to, and that's part of like the ethos around the work that I do, which is, if I'm going to have that learning moment conversation with somebody, I need to ensure that I have the time, and I have the time to actually make it a valuable experience for them, right? And that they truly get something out of it, as opposed to me pointing out some of their shortfalls. They need to understand, what could they have done differently? What can they do better? And also what offer myself as a resource to them as well. And that's part of the DE&I sort of mantra. And that's why this is it can be hard work. Well, it is hard work.
It is. It is. I love what you said. Meet them where they are, but also don't leave them there. And this does require us to be willing to step up and speak up and educate as well. And this is why I do the shows like this, is for us to have conversations so that people are aware and can take proactive steps as well. So how has your lived experience inspired what you do in DE&I?
Okay, so this is the the crux of what gets me up in the morning. So my partner and I, 15 years ago, found out that our child has special needs. He's profoundly deaf. He also has a slew of other disabilities, and we went from being, our thoughts in terms of what parenthood was going to be like for us turned out to be very different for us in terms of reality. And at the time, and I think Jean had talked about the importance of mentors, and I want to call out to my mentors as well. But at that time, I was being mentored, and I was actually being mentored and also reverse mentoring the CEO of IBM Canada at the time, an incredible leader called Dan Fortin. And Dan had asked me to reverse mentor him for a number of reasons, but more importantly, he and I became very good friends. It turned out he was a born-again Christian, and for him, faith was very, very important. So when he realized that our child had special needs and that life for us was going to be very, very different, he gave me the opportunity to become part of the solution, and like, because I had said to him, Dan, my fear is as a parent of this of our son is, what is the world going to be like in 18 or 20 years time when he's ready to join the workforce and the workplace? Because right now I don't feel confident. And what he said to me was, well, rather than be a bystander, goes, why don't you become part of the solution? And that's when he suggested to me that I apply for the head of diversity and inclusion at IBM. And that's my lived experience. And every day I wake up knowing that I have privilege and opportunity to change not just the life and the relevance of people who are going to join the workforce in the next 10 to 15, 20 years time, but more importantly, the opportunity that I have to change the perspectives and the outcomes for those who are currently in the workforce and the workplace today. Not just the individuals from underrepresented groups, but also the general employee population who are curious about understanding, why is there underrepresentation of Indigenous people with different abilities, or why is there an underrepresentation of women of color, Indigenous women, or people with disabilities at senior ranks of the organization? Why is it that when we have to right size or downsize of an organization, that my visible minority colleagues or my visible minority peers or people with disabilities or Indigenous peoples are the ones that are impacted, right? And that's because they don't traditionally ascend into organizations at the rate as the broader representation do as well. So that's kind of what drives my work. So.
Wow, that's amazing. When you have something that's so important to you, that what drives you, it's amazing there. I want to talk about a few more questions about advice. How to reduce or prevent unconscious bias?
Well, that's a 64 million Canadian dollar question, right? Well, how do you in terms of preventing unconscious bias, I think prevent is a word that I in just reading that and seeing that there is I don't think you want people walking on eggshells, right? You want people to feel safe, right? And in the sense that I can make a mistake and be called out for it, right? So how do you prevent and unconscious biases there as well? I think talking about it. I think leaders walking the talk, not just talking the talk. Leaders leading with example, acknowledging themselves as being vulnerable and authentic, and telling their own stories about assumptions that they've made, biases that they've made, or their own lived experiences themselves. I can tell you that white heterosexual able-bodied men have also been the subject of biases as well, right? And accepting that we all make these biases. You can do your unconscious bias training, and kudos to you if you do that, right? But it can't be one and done, right? You've got to have this rhythmic, this drumbeat, this cadence of talking about what true inclusion and equity really feels like. It's not good enough just to have an article on the intranet on Black History Month or International Women's Day or Pride Month or National Indigenous Peoples Heritage Month. It's got to be woven into the fabric of the organization, from the CEO's town halls to the business leaders' monthly team meetings with their HR partner in attendance, talking about the diversity of the succession pipelines for the critical roles in their organization. Questioning and holding accountable talent acquisition for ensuring that there's diverse candidate slates being presented to hiring managers, right? So
Yeah.
it is such an organic program, if you isolate it and keep it as a HR program, it's gonna, you've checked the mark, right, and nothing more.
Yeah, that's such good advice there. How to make an outsider feel welcome and invited?
So first of all, acknowledging them as an outsider. I think one of the things that we talk about, and I did a session. I created a session called microaggressions, which covered micro inequities, right, like microaggressions, but also micro affirmations. So micro affirmations are things, because we can always tell people, here's what you're doing wrong, right? That's a microaggression. There, using idioms are a microaggression. Not acknowledging somebody as being new in the team and having a conversation with everybody else without even saying, oh, hey, have you met Diana? She's actually new to the organization. She's actually a new Canadian here. So, and calling out, when we use an idiom, let's explain what that idiom there is, right? So, I remember when I came to Canada and I heard the term, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I was like, what?
I can relate to that with idioms. I remember growing up, even coming back here when I was in school. If I don't understand, I would ask, and sometimes I would get made fun of. And I remember even just recently, a couple of years ago, we had a barbecue with some friends, and someone said like, "Oh, don't poke the bear," and I didn't quite understand what that meant until I got made fun of, basically jokingly, like, "Oh, like you don't know what that means," and I had to understand that. But you're right, like you have to explain it. If they're not from here, they're not going to get that, understand it.
Yeah. So the other ways that you can make others people, feel invited there and welcome, especially if they're new as well, or if you're meeting them for the first time. It sounds like a cliche, but put down your technology, right? Put down anything that's going to distract them. Give them your full attention, right? Acknowledge them, right? Ask questions to validate. There's nothing more that you can't do anything more, right? To tell me that you are listening to me. Then when you ask for validating questions, Diana, just tell me a little bit more about that statement there as well. Or Diana, can you peel back the layer there? Can we step back there and talk to me about your broader the broader situation, right? That's how you can make somebody feel welcomed, right? And check yourself. Are you asking questions to just poke holes? Are you truly asking questions, right, to really truly understand what the situation there is as well? So these are all types of micro affirmations that that we've researched and that we've come up with. And I like that. There's so much more that we can do. And my ethos around diversity, equity, inclusion is we can tell you what you're doing wrong, and you most likely know what you're doing wrong, but you just haven't acknowledged it. But what I can tell you, and what my true power is that hidden power is to tell you what you can do better, and what we as a collective need to change and do better as well.
Yeah, that's such great advice, is looking about the solution. How are employers building a diverse workforce to increase representations? You work with a lot of them. Maybe you can get some insights, like what are some of the best practices? And
well, so organizations are doing the ready, fire, and then aim, as opposed to the ready, aim, and fire. And I've lost numerous opportunities and clients who just want to jump in with unconscious bias training, and you've got to give them every opportunity to listen, to hear you out and hear them out here. But what organizations, I think the best practices, and a lot of Canadian organizations are doing this, but I don't want to just make this a Canadian discussion here, but being in the privileged position of working with a global consulting practice, we're seeing many organizations go about first by doing a true finger of the pulse of the organization, which is a diagnostic. And the diagnostic gives you that quantitative and that qualitative evidence to understand, are your talent management processes truly equitable, right? And equitable in the lens of whether it's visible, invisible disabilities, ethnicity, generation, color, the intersection of color as well, right? We're looking. We do an assessment of their talent flow, right, and look for the heat maps or the lack thereof, and then provide them quantitative evidence to say, people of color do not excel in these 3 areas or these 3 lines of your businesses. However, they do in this area of the business or this particular function. And then we get to explore what is that function or that area of the business doing differently to the others there. And then we actually then can cross-pollinate best practices. We can suggest leaders from these particular lines of businesses or functions go over to lead other areas and help do that. So that's, speaking to employees. I run focus groups and speaking firsthand to groups of employees and hearing from them firsthand of their true lived experiences is phenomenal. And we did several focus groups for organizations last year, as you know, with a societal breakdown after the murder of George Floyd. And we found qualitative evidence from focus groups from Black Canadians and Black employees that show that they have a very, very different lived experience in the workforce as compared to the mainstream Asian and minority peers. So we were able to call that out, and that's what and organizations are saying, thank you. Now we have this evidence. Now we can invest time, resources, and put measurements into, in terms of how we define success, into scorecards, not just our leader scorecards, but corporate scorecards. And we're going to talk about this as well, right? So, and I can go on, Diana, I can go on, but more importantly, what I've seen is organizations go out there and, having done these diagnostics, say, here's the findings, here's what we're going to commit to, here, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's the role and the opportunity that you have to get involved as well.
I love this. So my final question, and I just came up with it because I'm noticing more of my clients now want to get into the DE&I work, like not just being volunteer, but they actually want to move into that space as a career profession. What advice do you have for those who want to get into this space as a career, even though they may not have the experience, but they have a lot of, and I'm getting also from clients who are especially people of color who want to do work in this space. So what advice do you have for them to break into that?
Yeah, no, and it's not lost on me that the number of roles right now that are available in organizations, wanting to put in place DE&I leaders, it's not lost on me that over the last 18 months it has snowballed, and DE&I practitioners who've been doing this for 10, 15 years, we're kind of smiling, because this is our moment, right? I think if you'd spoken to me 8, 9 years ago, I would have said, yeah, come see me and I'll and officially engage me and I'll tell you, right? But I think, as you can tell, I'm at a stage of my life where I'm getting towards a point where I realize that I can't be doing this for an eternity, and that I got to pass the baton on. And it's not in my interest, nor in the interest of my son or children like him or people in the workplace today, for me to hold on to the intellectual capital that I have amassed. So I openly share. I try and mentor as many junior DE&I professionals coming through. I would say to somebody who's trying to get into DE&I work, reach out and reach out to not just me. There are great leaders in DE&I and organizations that have been doing it for a decade plus, right?
Yeah.
Right. They will. Chances are they'll take you under their wing. But as the former earlier speaker talked about mentoring, I think was it Jean who talked about mentoring?
Jean, yeah, Jean, yes, you're right.
Jean who talked about mentoring.
Yeah.
That if you come to me as a mentor, be prepared to do some work, right? Because if I'm going to invest my time in you, there is going to be some reading, there's going to be some homework, and then there will be some questions that I ask you as well, right? But I've got to see some return on investment here in the sense that your growth is what really motivates me as well. do work, right? Do some reading. Do some great reading here as well, right? Understand what compliance looks like. I know it's a bit of a heavy discussion, but what does federal and provincial regulations look like in terms of employment? If you are equipped with that, that puts you in a forward position there as well. So I find a mentor, do your homework, but more importantly, what's your hook? What is your hook into the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion? What's your story? Do you have your story? Have your story ready. And don't just have it ready to tell somebody else. Have it ready to tell yourself. Because as I said, right, this is a marathon. It's a heavy lift here. And there will be days where you need to remind yourself why you do this work.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that advice. And I'm so glad I asked that question, because I'm definitely seeing more people interested in this work. And like, probably like you see how like Daniel and like Ivan, they both sit on committees at work, on their DEI committees, and they want to be involved because it matters to them as well. So that's part of could also be the first step, is getting involved at work. And I know there's tons of training out there as well to get certified and as well.
There is, but that I think President Obama on his at the end of his 8 years, he said get involved, right? He challenged people to get involved, right? Don't just it's not just about your vote, it's about actually being active in that dialogue, in that space, right?
Amazing.
You have every right to be in that conversation there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We had, Princess said, love your wisdom. Letitia said, Tej has such great wisdom, so much wisdom here to share today. So thank you. Any final advice or words that you want to share?
I want to acknowledge Jean, Angie, Ivan, and Daniel. It was incredible to be amongst people, and yourself, of course, Diana, there as well. I think it's okay for us to clap back at that system, right? The system that thinks that it created us. I think we need to thank our those who cleared the path for ourselves. We stand on the shoulders of those who came here as immigrants, who had to compromise on their spiritual values, their social values, their quality of life here as well, and that was mostly our parents. And I think we need to honor our parents, honor our ancestors, those, and now those uncle and aunties who are, themselves struggling there as well during this time, lift them in the way that we can, because, it wasn't that long ago that I was in your age brackets, to all those previous speakers there as well. Life changes and life moves real fast. And it's, we need to take care of each other.
Yeah, take care of each other. Amazing. Thank you so much, Tej. This was so beautiful. Thank you for being here today and sharing your wisdom. And I want to wish you all the best. Have an amazing weekend there.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you very much for the honor.
My pleasure. All right, you take care.
Thank you.
Wow, what a day. This was so good. We just completed our 5 Fireside Chat series on the Dare to Differentiate show and Amplifying Asian Voices. I feel today was just, I'm so inspired. I feel empowered. It was so many amazing, authentic conversations. I felt touched and moved as well. I don't know about you guys, but I really felt that today. And I want to do a quick summary of some of the key learnings for those who may have missed it. I want to do some quick summary lessons as well, and highly recommend watching the replay there. So first up, we had Dr. Jean Kim, who talked about mentoring matters. So she talked about that mentors can help you see hope, right? Can help you advance your career, find mentorship programs to help you as well. You can also be a mentor, be a peer mentor, write a recommendation for your mentors as well, and be prepared to do the work and when it comes to having that mentor-mentee relationship. And then next up, we had Angie Kim, who talked about lead, care, win. I loved her energy and passion as well. And she talked about the importance of leading with empathy, to volunteer and be humble, to record yourself, like when you're thinking about even like speaking as well, how to influence, record yourself and see how well you're doing. Practice to communicate with confidence as well, and seek feedback. I think the one thing that I learned from her in terms of moving up in her career is to help really rise with build a winning team as well, help others rise in the organization as well. So it's not just about you, but also like, lifting each other there. And then third, we had Ivan Lee as well, where he's talked about speaking up, the importance of speaking up. He talked about his journey as well, of why he's so involved in the DE&I space, which I loved his story as well, to really stay true to your values, especially this work in the DI space. Like you have to really care about it. You have to be passionate about it, be willing to have these crucial conversations as well. And as an individual, wanting to advance their career, be willing to speak up as well, and to build that executive presence of yours. And then we had Daniel Yeung, who's also my former mentor at TELUS, and his talk was about finding fulfillment at work. So a lot of you talked about the giving, making a difference. I feel like today's theme was a lot of that with a lot of speakers, is that making a difference, and how our differences are our strengths there, and to really take interest in others, right? Especially when we're looking to welcome outsiders. Like we want to take interest, be curious about them as well. Reframe what success means to you. If you're in a job that you're feeling dissatisfied, change your perspective, change your thinking of what does really success mean to you there. It's not just about checking off about accomplishing things, but it could be like that, you had a great conversation with your partner, with your kids, those little moments that we want to be grateful for there, okay? Having that servant leadership mindset. I feel like honestly today, all the speakers talked about that there, and to really celebrate those wins along the way. And then lastly, we had Singh, Hazra, who talked about, about diversity. I loved his story about his own lived experience of the stereotypes that he faced, and how it's so important that that we need to welcome immigrants, to acknowledge who they are. The fact that they moved to a new country, they had to overcome the language barrier, the resilience, the grit. We really need to honor that as well, and to advocate for yourself. This is so important. I think this is why I'm doing things like this as well, is that we need to advocate for yourself so that that people can learn. And I thought one of the interesting learning as well is that when we face, let's say the stereotype or the microaggression, is that we need to meet people where they're at, and also educate them as well, that we don't just leave them there. I thought that was really a great insight. It does require more work from us, but it's important to have this dialogue and conversation as well. So yeah, don't be a bystander, be a solution. If you really want to see change, is be part of the solution there. So that's a wrap for today's show. I hope you guys enjoy this. I see some of you are still here. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And next week we have another 5 amazing speakers. That would be our last series for the Amplifying Agent Voices series there. I invite you guys to join in. We have some amazing speakers to check out on my website at mymarkability.com/events. Let me just pop that up so that you guys can see that as well, so that you can check out my upcoming speakers. They're going to be amazing as well there. Okay. And anything else I want to add here? And that's about it. If you want to find out any more free resources, feel free to check out my website as well, of mymarkability.com/resources, where you can get some free training on career clarity, interview prep, and networking. Thank you so much. I want to wish you all the best. Stay safe and take care. Cheers.